This is Pulse of Africa, the face of Ethiopia, the voice of Africa.
Greetings viewers, you're watching Pulse of Africa. I am Samia Mohammed, bringing you today's latest news. First, here are our top stories. US to establish Independent Africa Command headquarters. South Sudan peace monitors route for renewed efforts to shore up peace deal. Senegal unveils recovery plan to rally on domestic funding. Here's the news with all the details. The United States is set to establish an independent military command for operations in Africa following Senate approval of a new commander for U.S. Africa Command. This decision marks the official separation of AFRICOM from U.S. Army, Europe and Africa, signaling strategic shift in Washington's approach to military engagement on the African continent. The creation of dedicated command structure is intended to strengthen U.S. responsiveness, improve cooperation with African partners, and secure American interests in the region. The planned change will allow for more direct decision-making and tailored strategic planning for the African theater. Chad on Monday commemorated the 65th anniversary of Independence Day with various events held nationwide, highlighted by a military band parade in the national capital of N'Djamena. Chadian President Mohamed Idriss Déby Itno, who presided over the parade, laid rest at the war memorial in the capital in tribute to the sons and daughters of the country who died fighting for their motherland. In other parts of the country, tens of thousands of people gathered to watch mechanized units and infantry march in front of dignitaries as armed forces, aircraft and helicopters flew overhead. The Chadian presidency said in a statement that the 65th commemoration was part of dynamic of renewed peace, strengthening of national sovereignty, and consolidation of republican institutions. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has called for gender equality to be a part of all policies and decisions with Women's Month underway in the country. In his latest weekly newsletter on Monday, Ramaphosa urged women to take center stage in the upcoming national dialogue process, set to be launched in Pretoria, stressing their central role in shaping the nation's future. The national dialogue aims to bring together individuals and organizations to find common ground and new solutions to the country's challenges. Women are affected by every political, social, and economic issue in the country. Likewise, every crisis, whether it's unemployment, crime, or climate change, affects women equally, and in some instances more than men, said Ramaphosa. South Sudan peace monitors on Monday called for concerted efforts among all country stakeholders to help shore up the peace deal. The reconstituted Joint Monitoring and Evaluation Commission briefed a visiting delegation from the African Union Peace and Security Council in Juba, the capital of South Sudan, on political and security situation. According to the RJMEC, the current situation in the country is risking a relapse into protracted armed conflict. RJMEC Chief of Staff Burhanu Kabede called for the concerted efforts of all stakeholders to prevail on the parties to agreement to chart a path back to lasting peace. In other news, Russian President Vladimir Putin signed a decree on Monday banning the procurement of foreign-made clothing and related gear for the country's armed forces starting in 2026. According to the decree, from January 1, 2026, all uniforms and other clothing items for the Russian armed forces must be produced by Russian companies whose manufacturing facilities are located within the country. By 2027, the requirement will extend to fabrics and knitted materials used in production, which must be domestically manufactured. The measure aims to entirely exclude the purchase of foreign-made clothing and materials for the needs of the military, the decree said. Climate change-driven heat extremes have wiped out 25 to 38% of tropical bird populations since 1950, according to the study involving Australian scientists. The study found that while shifts in average temperature and rainfall have some influence, the biggest climate threat to birds, particularly in tropical regions, comes from exposure to extreme heat, according to an analysis released Tuesday on the University of Queensland website. Birds in tropical regions are now experiencing dangerously hot days, about 10 times more often than they did in the past, researchers have found. Surviving birds may suffer lasting damage, including organ failure and reduced breeding success, as extreme heat lowers body condition, limits foraging and stressing eggs and chicks, and can cause dehydration or nest abandonment, the study showed.
The story of resurgent Ethiopia and burgeoning Africa is here, only on the Pulse of Africa channel. All the time, Pulse of Africa, the face of Ethiopia, the voice of Africa.
Next up, business news. Namibia's economy is projected to grow by 3.5% in 2025, down from 3.7% in 2024 due to weaker performance in agriculture, mining and manufacturing, the central bank said its latest economic outlook released on Monday. In its August Economic Outlook report, the Bank of Namibia said the declaration is mainly attributed to contraction in primary industries, particularly the livestock subsector, stemming from reduced herd sizes, which continue to be impacted by the drought condition experienced in 2024. Additionally, BON said the diamond mining sector is expected to continue its declining path, reflecting weak global demand, coupled with headwinds from the imposition of trade tariffs and rising competition from lab-grown alternatives. It's noted that the manufacturing sector is also set weighing negatively on growth, with notable contraction anticipated in meat processing and basic non-ferrous metals. Finally, Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko unveiled a new economic recovery plan for Senegal, pledging to finance 90% of the initiative through domestic resources and avoid additional debt. The plan aimed at stabilizing the finances of West African nation that began producing oil and gas last year comes with Senegal facing financial challenges and scrutiny over debt misreporting. We have identified more than $8.16 billion in available resources between 2025 and 2028 without increasing the state's debt, Sonko said during the presentation in the capital, Dakar. The plan to cut public spending and boost revenues aims to help narrow the budget deficit to 3% of GDP by 2027 from 12% in 2024. Before we close, here's a quick look at the latest global commodities prices update. Next, let's take a look at the current weather forecasts. That's all from Pulse of Africa today. Thank you for being with us.
This is Pulse of Africa, the face of Ethiopia, the voice of Africa.